Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 12, season 4 of the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday throughout the season. Evening, Richie. Well, it was a bit of a mixed bag, some big wins, some close matches, and a very wet Warriors defeat. How was your weekend, firstly, and what did you think of round 9?
Hey, evening, Brad. My weekend was good, apart from the Warriors game result, but, you know, we have to live with that. Otherwise, I thought the round was pretty exciting. Some pretty out there results, particularly the Tigers-Panthers game, which was a great watch. How was your weekend?
Yeah, apart from sitting in that weather, it wasn't too bad. Very, very cold, very wet. But yeah, enjoyable round apart from that loss. I think it was great watching the Tigers. We'll talk about it a bit more when we get to that game. But yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. And unfortunately, the one time I decided to back the Dragons, it blew up in my face. So, we'll get to it when we get to it, though. So while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m., we can also catch our show at your convenience on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week. We'll then review round 9 and update on our tips. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as questions we've got for each other, before previewing Magic Round and making our picks. And then not really much in Super League because they had the week off, but we'll do a quick rundown of the upcoming matches for the Super League. But yeah, remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show. Paul had better things to do, so he's not here. So I'm running the show in the background as well. So we'll be a bit, there won't be all the awesome graphics that he loves to throw up. But I'll do my best to keep an eye on all the comments. I see Mikey and Simon are on board. But yeah, we may as well just get straight into it, Richie.
Yep, let's go, mate.
First one, we've talked about it a bit the past few weeks, but it's now official. England are going to host Tonga in a 3-test series. I've done a quick jot of what's happening. So on 22nd of October in St. Helens, they'll play. Then in Uddersfield on October 28th. And then they'll end up in Leeds on the 4th of November. So I had a whole lot of quotes from Christian Wolff and the like, but one of the big ones that I noticed was because he was kind of asked about that 4 nations that we've been talking about and, why pick England over that? And he basically said that England came with an offer. The 4 nations thing is just rumors at the moment and there's no plan. So, take the offer that's on the table, which I think is a wise decision. The last thing you want to do is say no to England and then you find out that the Kiwis and the Kangaroos haven't got a 4 nations ready for you to go at the end of the year. But what do you take? What's your thought on it? I think they said it was the first time a second-tier club's done a Northern Hemisphere tour. So great to see Tonga do that. They want to go back for a bit of revenge after their disappointing end to the World Cup. But what's your take on the England-Tonga series?
Oh, great news, mate. I'm a big fan of the news. I will eagerly await that series. I think it'll be a very competitive series. I think it'll be a really good watch. So me, yourself, and I have always, banged the drum of international footy. So I'm really excited about that. Would love to see something similar with maybe the Kiwis do a series against Samoa and I'm sure it could sell out Mount Smart, just chop off Australia. They don't seem to be too interested.
Yeah, I think it's always the international games are always falling behind, mainly due to Australia, in my opinion. If it's right or wrong, you can discuss that with yourselves, but they don't care. It's origin or nothing for them. New Zealand really needs to be a bit more proactive. I don't know the ins and outs in the business room with how they arrange it, but yeah, if Samoa is willing to go, I think the very same thing. A 3-test series in New Zealand with Samoa would be great if Australia just aren't interested. Or even if you want to do just a tri-series and bring Papua New Guinea into it, because they're always champing at the bit to represent their country and play. So, just screw the Aussies and play internationals without them. It's what we were doing. It's why they fell so far down in the rankings when it came to the World Cup, because they just didn't play.
Yeah.
But interesting to see. Hopefully we'll have some more news in the upcoming weeks about what Samoa, the Kiwis, Papua New Guinea will be doing. But hopefully there is something penciled in for them at the end of the year as well. But we'll keep up to that. And I see Jacko and Hammer are here as well. Evening, guys.
Hey, guys.
Next bit of news. I have to talk about it, but I'll let you basically do all of it. The NRL's awarded the Dragons dispensation for the total amount of Cody Ramsey. I put Cody Walker's name in here in my notes, which is great. Cody Ramsey, since he's not available to play for the entire season. No word on how they're going to use it. It's rumored to be around 350, 400K. It's a good, I guess it was unfortunate for him being ruled out, and it will help the Dragon. I don't know what who will they grab. It's not like there's anyone sitting there that they could just pick up. But what do you reckon? Do you reckon they're going to actually use it? They kind of have to now. If they've requested dispensation, they have to use it.
Yeah, I assume they probably have some kind of plan in place if they requested that dispensation. They probably have a little short list of players that they want to go after. I really feel for Cody Ramsey first and foremost. But it's opened the door for Tyrell Sloan as well, who's playing pretty good footy. But it'd be interesting to see who their target is. And whether or not they would be pushing for a first grade spot. Depends who they were able to get.
Yeah, and Jacko said they should get Sam Walker as a lone player. There is, I didn't really put it in the news, but there is a lot of talk about Sam Walker, and a lot of teams want him since he's not wanted in first grade at the moment for the Roosters. Still didn't make it even with some, they lost a centre this week, and they still decided to keep their centre and Joseph Madu in the halves and keep Sam Walker out. I went to the New South Wales Cup game before the first grade game at Mount Smart and got to watch Sam playing in New South Wales Cup, and he looked fine to me. I think he's a talented player. It's just the Roosters' kind of reputation since Cooper Cronk left. They kind of have a youngster in the halves, and they throw all the expectation on their shoulders, and then if they're not hitting a 10 out of 10 every week, they get cast aside. So I think he's a talent, and I don't see the Roosters letting him go.
He was looking good in that cup game up until he had to go off hurt before coming back. So I don't see the Roosters letting him go though. No, I'm actually surprised he didn't get named this week with Momirovski hurt. I thought that would surely mean Manu back up to centres, but hey, Robbo knows better than us, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's why we sit here, and he's a head coach. But we'll see what happens when all the dust settles at the Roosters with that stuff. But yeah, Jacko agreed, saying he thought he played well in the cup game, and he's a first grader for sure. So yeah, I think he'll buy his time and come back. But next bit of news, I'm still waiting for more. But the Rabbitohs made an error with their interchange, and they had 14 players on the field for a brief period of time. I think it was only like 20 seconds or something. The NRL are apparently investigating it and will decide if a punishment's needed. They haven't said anything yet, but it is interesting because there has been previous times in the NRL that
with the Warriors too.
Warriors in their first year where it didn't have an effect on the game, but because they had it, they were deducted 2 points. I can't remember. There was one a few years ago, same situation, got deducted points. But yeah, the fact that it's been, almost a week and the NRL haven't made a decision or an announcement is interesting. I don't really care one way or the other. It's not like they've actually got those interchange officials on the sideline that manage it. So I don't know how it happened to begin with, which is probably why it's taking so long, because in the old days, you didn't have that person that managed it. So you could kind of say it's on them more than the club. The club makes the interchange. They're meant to say, okay, he's off, get on. Didn't happen. But yeah, what's your take on it? And do you think there'll be a punishment?
I heard rumor that it might be just a fine. If that's the case, I'm all good with that. I don't. It was only what, like you say, 20 seconds. Nothing significant happened in that time frame. They did most of the damage when it was 13 on 13.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy with a fine if that's where they ended up. But like you say, who takes all the blame? Is some of it on the interchange official as well that's supposed to monitor it?
Yeah, well, I'd say it's almost all on them because the coaches make the decision and then the interchange official, basically holds the player's hand, takes them to the sideline and then tells them when to go on. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, hopefully we've actually got a decision by the time we do our show next week.
Yeah.
Next bit of news. It's very murky, Richie. So it's probably not even news anymore. But there's been a lot of noise about the Sea Eagles signing Kyle Flanagan from the Bulldogs for the rest of the season. Both sides have denied the rumor, but there's usually where there's smoke, there's fire. New news is saying that the Bulldogs were only interested if they got a player in return. But Phil Gould's come out on Twitter, as he loves to do, and responded rubbishing the claims. He had like a huge message that he wanted to let us all know. Saying it's all incorrect and criticized the media for making up lies. I don't know where to sit with it because I've seen Gould have this kind of tirade before, and then what the media have said happens. So he has in the past denied stuff that has come out. But on the other hand, the media, when it comes to NRL, does say a lot of things that don't eventuate. So, what's your take on it? And do you think Flanagan will, end up away from the Bulldogs? Gould seemed to make it sound like he's part of their plans for the future, which I don't believe anyway. But
yeah, I find that hard to believe because they've shifted Burton into 7, and I don't know if that's just a form decision, whether they think Flanagan just needed some time, but I don't know where Manly would play Flanagan if they were to pursue him when they've got Cherry Evans, Schuster, Johns. Who knows what's happening with Schuster right now? He's fighting his teammates.
That's later on in the news. So you're spoiling it already.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Interesting to see. Mikey thinks Flanagan might be a hooker. Don't know. Maybe there's something in that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just wanted to mention it because it's been something that's kind of been taking up the social media space since our last show. So you've got to mention it to stay relevant, But I'm sure we'll probably be announcing that he's going to be a Manly player by next week. You watch.
Yeah.
And yet Simon said he's not very keen on Peter V'landys with the suggestion of having a second team in Melbourne. Doesn't think it's a good idea. Yeah, I didn't even have that in the news. I've kind of got a mental block when it comes to Peter V'landys. Whenever he says something, I don't tend to listen anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, I'm a bit more indecisive about the idea of there being a second New Zealand team. And I think that's more logical than having a second team in Melbourne. It's going back to what I said last week or maybe the week before with V'landys, where everything's a pissing contest. Yeah. He knows that Melbourne's all about AFL. He thinks more teams. It doesn't work. You still don't get the big crowds AFL does in Melbourne, even when you've got one of the best teams in the NRL. Having a second team there is not going to make it any better. They're just going to be cannibalizing each other, in my opinion. But they're going to do, and Simon said, Western Australia or Adelaide, best case. I think you need to take it to a new market. If you want to grow it, going to the same market over and over again is not going to grow you. But the former front rower thinks he's a halfback and now a business analyst for the NRL. But it makes more sense to be taking it to places where they haven't got a foothold. But what's your take on that? I know it wasn't on my news notes for you, but you can freestyle. It's fine.
Yep, I don't understand the logic. I'm very much the same as you, Simon. I don't understand the logic of a second team out of Melbourne. The Melbourne Storm do okay because they're very successful, but I think putting another franchise there, you'd be very hard pressed to get them as successful as the Storm are, and you're just diluting the supporter base. Western Australia is a good one, like Simon said. I think untapped market, nice stadium there. Time zones might be a bit niggly, but I'm sure they'd find a way around that.
Yeah, time zones niggly, but they want to start next season in America where the time zones are way off as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But yeah, Volandis, I think he's still living off a lot of what he did during COVID and helping keep things going. But he just seems like a little kid at times, just trying to do the, look at us, where they don't need to do that. I know, I'm not sure in the Australian space, if Ham is still here, he might be able to give us a bit more of an input. But I feel like the NRL is not winning the race, but is getting better in terms of the space in New Zealand with Union. Like, the All Blacks are the All Blacks, but you look at the games the Warriors have had at Mount Smart compared to the Super Rugby games, in terms of crowd levels and all that. I think viewership as well. The NRL is beating Super Rugby in New Zealand, so they're kind of winning that market already, and that's just by letting them actually play in New Zealand. Shock horror. But it's going to be interesting. But Volandis, I think, needs to get his ego in check and actually focus more on making the game bigger and not his own name bigger. Fully ruining any chance of me working for the NRL now, but it is. And Simon said he doesn't think he's a good chairman with the NRL. I just think he likes the sound of his voice too much, which is very hypocritical of myself. But I think he just likes to hear himself talk. And Jacko said Storm's been in Melbourne for 20 years and barely made a dent in AFL's dominance. Even the crowds aren't that big. Like, the biggest crowd they get every year is the Anzac game. It's a special occasion. All the expat Kiwis go in because they want to watch the Warriors. I used to tell you all the time, I always found it funny that the Warriors would go to play Melbourne and you'd always hear Warriors chants in Melbourne Stadium. That's showing that there's technically more fans for the away team than the home team, which isn't ideal. But they're just a successful team, and they just don't have as much support as you would imagine you would if you're as dominant as they've been. But we're going off on a segue here because Paul's not here to reel us in. But next bit of news, I know we're going to talk about Schuster a little bit, but the first bit of news from Manly was Jeff Tooby is returning to the club. He's going back as a junior development coach. It's clear he loves the club. I don't know if I would go back after how he was treated in his exit, but he wants to go back. What's your take?
They must be on amicable terms, him and the club, to have got this deal over the line, though. And like you say, I think he loves the club, and that goes a long way. I'm sure he'd put a lot of passion into the role of developing the young talent out of there. So good. Happy days for them.
And Simon talking about Melbourne's. To be fair, Melbourne's had multiple generations to build a fan base compared to Sydney, which has had centuries. That's true. But I still don't think a second team's going to help. Got another bit. It's very interesting. I watch every Monday. I watch it, Richie. Graham Ellersly's little I'm sorry party that he does on Mondays. I watch it because I'm always interested to see things that I saw that I disagreed with, to see if he is going to say the same thing or not. They actually made an admission of guilt. Not for the Warriors game, though, surprisingly. But he admitted that the officials missed a knock-on from Raider Hudson Young. during Golden Point in the Raiders-Dolphins game. I've got a quote from him here saying, "I wish we could change that decision so the outcome's determined entirely by the players. It's disappointing for us when a decision made by the official brings into question the outcome of the game." What's your take on it? Because I know we talk a lot about some of the questionable decisions made in Warriors games that don't seem to get this level of attention. Golden Point is a very different situation. It's every little detail matters.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What's your take on the decision first? And then Alec.
The decision was wrong.
Yeah.
They were backed into a corner there. There's nothing he could have done except admit that a mistake was made and apologize for it. I feel sorry for the Dolphins because as a Warriors fan, we've had a fair few apology Mondays and they never feel good. They don't fix it. Nobody wins really.
Yeah. It's be horrible for them. I feel for them there. I thought I'll err a little bit on the official. I thought the knock on in real time was a little bit harder to see than some of the knock ons that they got away with in the Roosters Warriors game.
The bunker should see it though.
The bunker should see it, but I don't know. I think in my review of the Warriors game, I mentioned the officials, not in a, they screwed us out of the game like everyone likes to say, but just there's so many games. There's 8 games a week, and there's always 2 or 3 moments in every game where you go, I don't know how they made that decision. So taking bias as a Warriors fan off the table.
Or non-decision as it may be. There was a knock-on in the Warriors game from Tedesco that I think everybody except the officials saw. Yeah.
And then there was there's calls in every game, and I don't know how they're going to fix it. I think I've said on here in previous seasons, I feel like the refs should be treated like the players. Like if you make a big mistake, you get dropped. Happens every now and then, but it really needs to be a real bad blooper for that to happen. So I don't know. But coming out and saying, we made a mistake, but we're human. I do understand that, but then it doesn't seem to be anything the other way. Jacko said Ellerslie would make a great politician. But he admits there's a problem, but there's nothing that they show us that they're actually trying to make it better. The referees, as much as we like to say it, the referees aren't out there to try to screw teams over, maybe. But if they're not being helped in a way. It's a double-edged sword. You could say the bunker should have seen it, but then when the bunker steps in at times, they either get it wrong or we say they're relying on the bunker too much.
Yeah, people complain.
It's there's always pluses and minuses both ways, but hopefully we see some action at some point. What happens, I don't know. But continuing with the official talk though, Richie, Bulldog Josh Reynolds has been charged with a grade 1 contrary conduct for saying bullshit to a referee after he made a decision. He's been fined $1,000. What's your take on it? I thought it was funny. And I thought the referee, he's in his rights to say, you can't speak to me like that. But I felt the way he reacted to what was said was a bit of an overreaction. Adam Fanua Black, before he was a Warrior, said something that was probably or is a lot worse, and the referee didn't react as bad. He kind of told him to pull his head in and sent him away. But it looked like a stroppy little kid saying like, how dare you speak to me like that? I'm talking to your mother right now. It felt comical, which kind of took away from how serious they may have believed it was. But what's your take on it?
It was hilarious. Everybody knows Josh Reynolds is like that. His nickname isn't Grub for nothing. Should he have said that to the ref? Maybe not, but I think, the ref blew up a wee bit more than he should have. I don't think it was, just you watch the way you speak to me, Josh, would have been fine, but he he went all headmaster on him. It was quite funny.
He did.
Yeah.
But Jacko said Atkins has got a very thin skin. He does. But yeah, I thought he went over the top. You shouldn't say that, I guess, but saying like if there's a call and you go, oh, that's bullshit, I don't think that's as bad. It's not like there's been players out there that have said you're screwing us here in less polite words and haven't had that type of reaction. They've been told, look, pull your head in, I'll send you to the bin. But yeah, it was more the reaction. And Nicholas is here and he said surely it's possible to referee a match of rugby league in an objectively unbiased manner. Why must referees pick sides to afford bias to? If they need to do that, they're poor referees. Yeah, I don't have it here, but I saw it on social media. There was a guy who used to be a ref, used to be a professional ref. He's a coach for a club now. They were having a game. It's like minor league stuff, lower grades. They arrived for the game. The ref didn't show up. He refereed the game for the team that he coached. His team lost. I think it was a 1-1 penalty count. And everyone was praising how down the middle he was. And he basically said that's a referee's job. It shouldn't matter. I think they do have a problem with that. Henry Perinara, the only Kiwi kind of ref, I always felt he had an extra penalty or two in his pocket against the Warriors, in my personal opinion. But yeah, it needs to be looked at. I'm sure there's stats that people can look at and go, I think that you've seen it in times where they go, this referee, when he's ref this team, they've lost 60% of the time and they've always lost the penalty count. I'm sure there is a bias in there, but yeah, there shouldn't be. It's your job. And Mikey said refs under the pump from higher up. Yeah, I don't think they are, though, because I don't see anything happening, but we don't see behind closed doors, so they might have more pressure on them. But I do feel for them, they'll get sat down in a meeting this week and get told, like a few years ago with Magic Round, okay, guys, if this happens, it needs to be a bin. And it's something that everyone hasn't played to for the past 9 rounds. So I do feel for them that it's a big job, but yeah, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen, as they say. Next bit, you talked about it already though, Richie. But Josh Schuster, he got into a punch-up at training with a teammate, and it was over something like there's something Manly do if someone has a bad haircut, they slap them on the back of the head or something, and he slapped someone a bit too hard and got into a punch-up that I think they said Olio had to pull them apart. But former Manly Pathways manager Christy Fulton blasted Schuster, saying that his attitude needs to change. He needs to grow up and take ownership of his decisions, saying basically, he's not putting the effort in. I think we've had comments earlier about his weight issues. He's not training as hard as he wants. I think DCE basically said he was at a crossroads in his career. He needs to decide what he wants to do. She also said that he surrounds himself with yes men and it's always someone else's fault rather than his. I've kind of said that in the past with him, saying like I think he believes his own hype too much, and his natural talent, I think he thinks is going to be enough to get him over the line. Where there's a lot of, almost everyone in the NRL has got a lot of natural talent. But if you want to actually be a consistent NRL first grader, you've got to have hard work as well. And I don't personally think he's got it. I think he needs a wake-up call. There's been rumours about Manly want him gone. They're paying him like $800,000 a year, and I don't think he's worth it. It's $800,000 on potential, and he hasn't shown enough, in my opinion. I think on Ron Hammer's prediction show, I think I predicted that he would lose the battle to be in the halves and Cooper Johns would take it. We're not really seeing that as much, but I don't think he's definitely not a half in my opinion. I think he's a second rower that wants to be a half, but so does every forward, let's be honest. But yeah, what's your take on Schuster? Do you think Manly are going to, back their claims of signing him and try to get him over this hump, or does he need to a bit like Moses Suoli'i. He kind of needed to leave the nest and find himself by going to a few other clubs. And could this be a Manly problem? Because he was also a young Manly when he was having this problem.
Yeah, I do think I agree with you that I think he's got a big contract, mostly on potential, and I've heard from a number of different sources now that perhaps he doesn't put in as much, and hard work will always beat talent that fails to work hard. That's just the way it is. So I think Josh, from what I hear, probably needs to, own up to that fact and really put in. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Who was the other person involved in the punch-up? Because I've only seen Schuster's name thrown out there.
It's a reserve grade player.
Right, no wonder.
I don't think he's actually played first grade. I'll look. I was going to write it down, but then I thought, I don't know who this guy is. So maybe
but if he's the first grader, then really he should know better. Really, I know he's young. I know
his name's Dean Madison.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lower profile player. So
yeah,
Schuster should probably know better. I know he's young, but come on.
Yeah, but yeah, it is what it is. It's going to be interesting. I personally think it would be better for Manly just to use that 800K elsewhere, especially since most of their cap money goes towards two players in their club anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting times. I thought when we heard these Flanagan rumors that they'll be like, "Oh, Bulldogs, you want Schuster? We'll take Flanagan." But I don't know. But yeah, I think Mikey said, yeah, Cooper is a good player. I really like Cooper Johns. I think he's a little battler. I think he's solid. He's not ever going to be talked about like other members of his family. But I think he's a handy player that goes out there and does his job.
Yeah, he's a good foil for a ball-dominant half like DCE, isn't he?
Yeah, I think, and in the combination that when we get to see it, I think they work well together. And he's probably on, half of what Schuster is. So it even makes business sense to just stick with that. I don't think you're getting more out of Schuster consistently than what you are with Cooper. But yeah, we'll see. But that was all we really had for news, Richie.
Cool.
I know I joked about a 3-hour show, but I don't think we can do that to Paul. So we'll move on to signings. Not as many. I've got 4. So Marcelo Montoya has extended his stay with the Warriors for another 2 years. I think we covered it briefly last week, but it wasn't official yet.
Yeah.
But it's official. What's your take on Marcelo? I know we did talk about Marcelo and Pompey. Maybe one of them or both were going to exit after the RTS news, but it's good to see Montoya. Out of the two, he was the one I really wanted to stay. So I'm happy to see him stay.
Yeah, if you put those two blokes in front of me and I had to pick one, it would have been Marcelo. So, yeah, I'm pretty well pleased about that that re-signing for us. I think he makes up a pretty important part of our backline now.
Definitely.
Yeah, and putting RTS in the backline, our back five's looking really nice.
Yeah, definitely. And Sean Russell has signed a 2-year extension with the Eels. I really like it. He's been real unlucky when it comes to injuries. I think he's basically had season-ending injuries the last 2 years, pretty much. So it's good to see the Eels showing their faith in him. It could have been a thing where they were like, no, you're just injury-prone, mate. We're going to let you go. So really happy because when he gets to play, he's a talent.
Yeah,
he's really good. So, yeah, good to see them show their loyalty there. Titans have extended the stay of I always get the name wrong. Khan Pereira for another 3 years. I think that's a logical signing. He's kind of hit the ground running when he got his chance with the Titans. So, yeah, really happy for the Titans to keep him. What's your take on him? He's kind of exploded out of nowhere.
I think if he stays injury free, he'll rack up a lot of tries for the Titans. Just speed to burn, elusive, knows his way to the try line, as we've seen in his brief stint already. I think this year he's notched up doubles. He's picking up tries. He's just got that knack. Similar sort of stature, but looks like he'll have a similar finishing prowess to a Nathan Merritt, Alex Johnston. These smaller guys with a ton of speed who know their way to the line.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how his career grows. And then the last one was interesting. Andrew Davey, the Bulldogs have released him immediately to return back to the Eels. Very interesting considering all the talk about the Bulldogs and their injury toll, that they have a healthy forward and they just let him go with no news on signing anyone back. So what's your take on Andrew Davey going back to the Eels?
Yeah, I was blindsided by that. I didn't see it coming, but I didn't realize his age. He's already in his 30s, isn't he?
He's an old boy. He's an old boy now.
I thought he's a bit younger than that, but he's a very handy player. So, I'm sure if he gets some opportunities at the Eels, he'll go well. I'm just surprised that he was released.
Yeah, I don't. We admittedly we're not hearing it a lot anymore, but Phil Gould was really good at doing the woe is us with the injury toll. Saying it's not fair with how many players have got out, and then you let a perfectly healthy one. Like the Warriors have 9 or 10 injured. It'd be like if we heard that they let Sirenen go. Sirenen's been released and gone to the Rabbitohs or something. You go why? We don't have Barnett, we don't have Tohu, we don't have all these guys. Why did you let Sirenen go? It seems strange to me. But
it is, when you think they're missing Kikau and guys like that, and then they just let a second row go. It's weird.
Yeah, strange. So I'm sure we'll be talking next week about the new forward they've picked up. But we'll move on to NRLW. There was a whole lot of signings, but I didn't get them all down. I basically picked the top ones, or in quotations, the ones that I actually know the players. But Steph Hancock and Brittany Brayley-Nati have re-signed with the Titans, and English fullback Franz Goldthorpe has signed with the Cowboys. She's the second Northern Hemisphere player to sign this year. Any words on those signings, Richie?
I can't say that I know a heck of a lot about those ladies. Look forward to seeing them play, but yeah, I'm not going to pretend I know a heck of a lot about them. So, how about you, Brad?
I don't know too much. I just know that Brayley-Nati was playing really well for the Titans in the last season, and Steph Hancock was handy. I think I saw maybe a little bit of Goldthorpe in the World Cup, but don't quote me on it. There was a lot of games to watch in the World Cup. So, I'm sure they're all going to do well. There's some nice, the teams are building up nicely, which segues in before we go to injuries and stuff. The NRL draw got released. I'm not going to go through all of it. When the games start happening, we're going to be talking about it every week like we normally do. But there's 9 rounds, with round 1 kicking off. The first game Saturday, the 22nd of July, with a match between the Titans and Cowboys. Excuse me. I've got a quote from Andrew Abdo before we move on just about the NRLW. So he said, this year's NRL Telstra Women's Premiership will be supercharged with 4 new teams, 9 regular season rounds followed by semi-finals and a grand final. The schedule will include a balance of standalone doubleheaders, club doubleheaders, which means both teams both women and men's from the same club playing on the same day in the same stadium, and standalone fixtures at new venues aimed at maximising the opportunity for fans to experience the Premiership live or on broadcast across a range of markets. So it's a very CEO soundbite there. But I'm always impressed with the NRLW, and I like that they're actually bringing doubleheaders back and linking them so you can go and watch your club's women's side before first grade kicks off as well. Looking forward to when that happens, when the Warriors are back in town, where you could even, I'm looking at it, when you could have a triple header. You could have New South Wales Cup, the women's and first grade all playing on the same day. I think that would be a great way of getting more eyes on those lower grades. But yeah, what's your take on the NRLW? I know it's probably going to make our show longer when we're reviewing. We don't really review their games. We kind of just break it down like we do with Super League.
Yeah. I just look forward to it, mate. I think it's gone from strength to strength over the past few years. Obviously, we look forward to the day that the Warriors get reintroduced, but even still, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. Last year, I felt like it took strides forward, even going into the rep footy of NRLW. So I'm sure it'll be a good one this year with the expansion, a lot of roster movements. So it'll be exciting.
Yeah, and Jacko's asked, is Sky going to broadcast the games? I would assume so. I can't say 100%, but they did last year and the year before that, so I don't see why they wouldn't. So, yeah. Moving on to injuries. We've got, as every bloody week, Richie, we've got a lot. So Manly, Jake Trbojevic is going to be out for about a month. He injured his calf, so that potentially means he's not going to be in Game 1 Origin. Braden Burns from the Bulldogs, he's going to miss 3 to 6 weeks after injuring his medial ligament. Paul Momorowski from the Roosters is out indefinitely after suffering ligament damage in his shoulder. Braden Hamley-Uele from the Sharks is also out for a month, also injuring his medial ligament. Ray Stone from the Dolphins is missing Magic Round with 11-day stand down for a head knock. Kurt Mann from the Knights is out indefinitely after tearing his oblique muscle. I'll leave that to you because I don't even know where that is. Richie, you're the muscle man here.
Yeah, that's the side of your abdomen, mate. The outer wall that frames your abs. So yeah, I've got a big one, but it's mostly fat. Yeah.
And Tom Chester, it's been confirmed. Cowboy Tom Chester is out for the season after injuring his ACL, which is super disappointing for him. So a lot of big losses there. It's not like there's little guys, Jake Trbojevic, Braden Burns, you could probably hit or miss, but the fact that they're already missing Adokar and the like, Momorowski, I think, is a big loss for the Roosters. Hamlin-Uele is massive for the Sharks. Ray Stone is the same. Kurt Mann, they're all big losses. What's your take on this injury toll this year? It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. I can't give you any reasons to why it seems to be such a war of attrition this season. I don't even know the stats to back that up. I don't know if it's any worse. It just seems like it's worse this year for whatever reason.
I think that it was bad last year, but it was all the same injury last year. But this year it just seems to be the sheer numbers in teams' rosters. Like it felt like there was always a lot, but every team may have had like one or two. So you still had a lot, but it was spread out. But this one, like the Warriors, I think technically now are on 8.
Yeah.
If Tohu and Chance play this week, they're on 8 injured. Bulldogs, I think, are at like 6 or 7. There's a few other teams at 6 or 7. And then you've got a few teams that have none or 1. So it's just the sheer amount for certain teams. I don't understand. Normally, the cliche is if you're unfit, you're more susceptible to injuries. But I think some of these teams, especially in the Warriors' case, are fitter than they've ever been.
Yeah.
So it's not the case. But yeah, it's something you can never prepare for. You can't go in with a plan and say, this is how we stop injuries. I don't know. And I fear there's going to be more with Magic Round and the beautiful pitch that they have. By the time you get to Saturday, Sunday, the rolled ankle all over the place. So, yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, hopefully we see it come down because, the more talent on the sidelines, the less enjoyable games are. And yeah, like Mikey mentioned HIA, that doesn't help. The 11-day stand down, I understand why they've brought it in, but this is the first week I think we've only got 1. It's usually 2 or 3. But yeah, and Jacko said Ivan Cleary's moaning about injuries, wants some change to the draw, but wouldn't say what. Yeah, I think draw helps. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm bleating, but like we talked about the Warriors, 3 games in 11 days. If you're looking at that in a draw perspective, and there's other teams that have got similar where they've got short stat games, it doesn't help you. Yeah, I don't know how you fix it. I think the draw needs a lot of work. I think the draw this year has been woeful with the fact that we've had multiple teams play each other twice before we got to round 10. It just doesn't make sense in my eyes. But yeah, they need to do something. What it is, I don't know. I'll come up with ideas and hopefully make some money off the NRL. But we'll go to Naughty Boy Corner before we go into the review. Only 3. Jeremiah Nanai is going to miss 4 weeks for grade 3 dangerous contact for his hip drop. What was your take on that? I did think it didn't look flash.
Yeah, it didn't look flash, and it's sort of in line with punishments handed out previously.
Yeah.
So at least there's a little bit of consistency there.
Yeah, and Tafofo Sipley is banned for 3 weeks for a grade 2 crusher tackle. It's kind of same type of punishment we've been seeing. Yeah. So I'll go with it. Brent Naden, it got 3 weeks for a grade 2 shoulder charge. A shoulder charge that didn't look as bad as one in a Warriors game. So, interesting that he got 3 weeks and the other guy didn't even get a fine or a penalty. But, I thought it was a bit hard done by. I think it was more on the fact that it was against the Panthers, if I'm brutally honest. I think maybe a week maybe for Brent Naden.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. I think 3 weeks is a stretch.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think it was a shoulder charge. If you ask me, I don't think it was anywhere as bad as what Satili Tupanua's one was in the Warriors game, Warriors versus Roosters. But hey, maybe we're being biased, but it's
100% we're being biased.
There's no consistency between those two. Those there.
No. But it is what it is. So we'll get into round 9 now, Richie. Talking about the games. First game was Sharks defeating the Cowboys 44-6. So I'll let you run it down.
Yep, Brad's team of the flavor of the month team, the Sharks, getting the result here. 7 tries to 1. Talakai, Jesse Ramian, Sione Katoa, Ronaldo Mulatalo grabbed 2. Nico Hines and Tig Wilton grabbed the tries. Just 1 try for the Cowboys. Kyle Felt. I was filthy Jeremiah, and I didn't get one because it cost me a lot of money. I was one off a nice multi. What do you think of the game, Brad?
Yeah, talking about the Sharks, I thought their attack was on point. They now look like the team I predicted to go all the way in our prediction show. They're just such a dangerous side that they're so hard to beat if you let them get a roll on, scoring 2 tries in the first, early stages, and they never look back. So, but what did you think of the Sharks?
Yeah, I think they're really starting to heat up now. Great attacking performance. Never once looked in doubt. It was one of 2 games this week where I felt like one team, it just felt like training, almost like a training run kind of mode.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Cowboys?
Back to losing ways after jagging a win against the Knights last week. I think this would have to be their most disappointing performance of the year, though. I know there's a lot of injury in their roster, but that wasn't flash watching if you're a Cowboys fan.
Yeah, and like Jacko kind of said, he said the Cows look like an unhappy bunch. Perhaps there's some behind the scene problems there. Potentially, I thought they never had a chance in this game. Their defensive line leaked like a sieve. Their poor discipline made matters worse. You're getting flogged and you get 2 men sent to the bin. That's not going to help. Their massive fall from last season continues. It feels like last season was just an outlier, like a little blip, because they're playing like they did the year before. and how we predicted they would last year. So yeah, I don't know what's changed there, but whatever it is, they need to fix it. Your player that stood out?
Nico had to be Nico. I mean, the whole team played well, but he's the puppet master. Everything comes off him. He touches the ball so many times. He's both sides of the ruck. Just orchestrates everything. Another great performance from him.
Yeah, he was mine as well. I just want to remind you that I said he'd go back-to-back Dally M's, and I think it's going to happen.
You could be right.
Every time he plays, he just goes 10 out of 10. It's crazy. But yeah, next game, Friday, Eels defeating Knights 43-12.
I said in that last segment, there was two performances where it felt like it was a training run. This was the other one. 7 tries to 2. Dill Brown, Mitch Moses, Clint Gutherson with a hat-trick, Sean Russell, who we talked about in the signing news, and Junior Bolo grabbed the tries for the Eels. 2 tries for the Knights, Matt Crocker and Dominic Young.
Yeah, so a bit like the Sharks, the Eels started quick and couldn't be stopped. Showed good attacking shape. They made too many errors. They made a lot of errors, but against poor opposition, it didn't matter. I feel like when you're on that roll, you can try to chance your arm a bit more than you normally would, which leads to those errors. And yeah, they just had the freedom to do that, like you said, a training run. So they were trying things that didn't work, but yeah, the game was already in the bag. It was over at halftime.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's your take on the Eels?
Yeah, I thought that's a lot closer to the Eels' potential. That showing. Number of players stepping up. I thought their spine was really good. Probably Dylan Brown's best game for the year. Obviously, Moses and Gutho went off as well. 15 line breaks for the game. It really did feel like a training run. It just felt like they were breaking them at will at times.
Yeah, and your take on the Knights?
I didn't see this coming. I thought they've shown a lot more fight and a lot more grit over the past month or so. Ponga looks to be lacking a lot of confidence when it comes to collisions, and I think his missed tackle stats are evidence of that, probably.
Yeah. I'm kind of the same, and Jacko's kind of agreed with you there about Ponga. He said the Ponga, with Ponga back, the Knights look disjointed. I've been saying that all year. I think the Knights are a lot better team when he's not in it, which is crazy when he's their marquee. But they were just woeful in this game. It was horrible to watch. Ponga, he struggles in the halves. He's not a half. As much as they want to make him a half, he's not. They need to get him out of there and go back to fullback. What that does with Lockie Miller, I'm not sure. But by having him up front in the halves, it's not working. Fix it. But who was your player that stood out? I've got your notes here, and I think you've typed it wrong, but I'll let you go.
I haven't typed it wrong, mate. I picked a player that stood out for the wrong reasons.
I see what you've done.
We already talked about it. Kalen Ponga. He just looks like he's lacking a lot of confidence, and in the front line, in the halves is not the place for that. He could maybe hide a bit more out at fullback, but I think if you take Kalen Ponga when he first came on the scene, sure, I think he'd be a lot more confident and probably attack more. But I think what's transpired with Kalen over the past year, with so many head knocks, he just looks gun shy in the front line. I don't think it's working. Whether or not that can be remedied sometime soon, and he has a breakout game where he gets it all back, I don't know, but doesn't look great right now.
Yeah. My player that stood out, I cheated. I went with Clint Gutherson. I was stuck. I didn't want to give it to the flat track bully, so I went with Gutho with the hat trick. So he's really stepped up his game since we got the news about the Eels looking for a new fullback to replace him out there and move him into another role.
Yes.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. So, well done to the Eels. Next game on Friday, Rabbitohs defeating Broncos 32-6.
Yeah, I know a lot of Broncos fans, and yeah, I enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
It was 6-1. Campbell Graham with a hat trick, Latrell Mitchell with a double, and Cody Walker grabbed one. So all your usual suspects there.
Yeah.
And just Jesse Arthurs grabbed the lone try for the Broncos, I believe, while Cam Murray was in the sin bin too. So not the greatest outing for the Bronx.
Yeah, without much resistance, the Rabbitohs were able to score at will, even with a man down. Cameron Murray sent to the bin in like the 4th minute. The Rabbitohs scored in the 6th. The errors went up again, which is always the thing I like to stick into the Rabbitohs. But it didn't matter. And if they keep playing like this, they'll stay a top 4 side comes finals time. What's your take on Souths?
Really impressed. In the last couple of weeks, they've beaten last year's premiers and this year's competition leaders. Again, showing their ability to rack up points in the second half. I think Campbell Graham's got to be close to New South Wales selection. There's a couple banging the door down, Nico Hines, and I think Campbell Graham as well.
Yeah. And your take on the Broncos?
Too many errors from them. They'll be hoping they can keep their big gun forwards fit for the majority of the season, because it really looked like they were missing Payne Haas, obviously, probably best prop in the game. Also, Ezra Mam too. Let's not forget, because he's been electric this year. So, I'm sure they'll bounce back, but it wasn't the best day for the Broncos.
Yeah, I've got on my notes here that they look like the 2022 version. They lack the attacking flair that they've had in the first 8 rounds. 100% that's because Payne Haas wasn't out there. He's there 200 meters a game front rower. And I didn't even mention Ezra Mann, but yeah, like you said, they missed him too. Walsh, I thought he played like he did at the Warriors towards the back end, which dampened their attack as well. Massive wake-up call for this team with Origin just around the corner, because they play like this with those players out. Those players are out for Origin as well. Maybe not all of them, but you think, Carrigan, Haas, they'll be gone. A few others. Walsh might even be gone.
Probably Capewell, maybe. Oates, if he's fit. There'll be a few.
Yeah, so if they played like this, admittedly, it's not like they got flogged by the Tigers or someone. No disrespect for the Tigers, but, it was a good team they played against. But, it's all about, some of these teams like the Panthers the last few years have looked sometimes even a little bit better without those players during Origin. So, yeah. It's a big concern. It's a wake-up call. But your player that stood out?
Had to be Campbell Graham. Obviously, hat-trick of tries, try assist, beautiful soft hands to set up Cody Walker's try. Defensively, he's one of the best defending centers in the game. He doesn't have a lot of flaws, and it was all on display on Friday.
Yeah, I cheated. I went the same. I went 2 games. I didn't want to give it to Latrell for the 3rd week in a row, so went with the hat trick here. Yeah, he's just such a solid player for them out there. Really impressed. But moving on to the divisive game, Raiders defeating the Dolphins 31-30. What's your rundown on this one?
It's 5 tries apiece, actually. So the comeback kid, Jared Croker, grabbed 1. Jack Wyden grabbed 1. Jordan Rapana, Sebastian Chris, and Jamal Fogarty with the 5 tries for the Raiders. 5 for the Dolphins, Ewan Aitken, Tabuai Fido, Connolly Lemuelu, and Jesse Bromwich. Well, Connolly Lemuelu grabbed 2. It was 3 from 5 from conversions for Croker, 5 from 5 from Asako, but 2 penalty goals for Croker and a Jamal Fogarty field goal.
Yeah. It was a close game. I thought the Raiders started well, but it looked like they were going to fade again, which we kind of see from them. But they held tough, and despite that lucky call, they had the ability to nail the match winner. We talked about in the news about the knock-on. They still had to go and do a field goal. It's not like that won the game. they still had to do it. And I think they said that was Jamal Fogarty's first ever field goal in the NRL.
It was, yeah.
So it's not like they had a guy that nails them every week out there. Credit where credit's due. I think they did very well here. Far from perfect, but they're heading in the right direction, which I'm sure Simon's going to love,
Yeah.
But your take on the Raiders?
Good result for them. They got one back on the Dolphins, who beat them earlier in the season. So they survived a scare from the Dolphins. Dolphins seem to be one of the comeback kings. Obviously, they got a favourable call, which helped them get the result in Golden Point. But that's going to happen from time to time. And I think that's their third win on the trot. So they're trending the right way.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the Dolphins?
They didn't get the result. But again, they proved that they're a never-say-die team. You can never count them out. I always thought this would be a real close game. I actually tipped the Raiders thinking it was in Canberra, but like Simon's pointed out, it was actually in Wagga Wagga. So I didn't realise that at first, but yeah.
I did the same, to be honest. I was like, yeah.
But yeah, they're showing a ton of fight, the Dolphins. I think I would not be shocked if they finish top 8, and I picked them for the spoon. But they've just proved me wrong time and time again this year.
Yeah, I've got the same, except for your woeful decision to predict them as wooden spooners. They were unlucky. It is fair to say they were unlucky with that call and whatnot, but they showed spirit. They were 22-12 at halftime. I thought, how are you going to do the big comeback 2 weeks in a row? If a few calls went their way, it may have been another win for them. I think they just let themselves down with a bit of lack of respect for the ball. Yeah. But they show true grit, and they are, like you said, I think they're a real finals chance. And Jacko mentioned Nikorima playing a lot better than he did at the Warriors. I thought this was probably his best game for the Dolphins. Thought he was fantastic out there. I've been very critical of him, maybe with some Warriors bias in there. But I thought he played really well. They're all just playing well there, which is, it's a fantastic story. For them, especially. I don't think the NRL helped them get this team up and running. I thought that they would just set them up for failure. But they're the real deal. I think they're a really talented team. Your player that stood out, though?
I put Jackie White in. Few reasons. I think he had a big week in the media. His name thrown around in the media a lot. Signing for another team. A lot of people questioning him, including former Raiders players. Then he came out and set up a couple of tries, scored a try himself. He had a great first half showing. And then after the game, obviously showed a lot of emotion and showed what the club still does mean to him. So, for a few reasons, he stood out for me.
Yeah, I was close to picking him. I think we're going to see a lot more out of him for the rest of this year. I think the weight's been lifted with the decision of staying or going. Decisions being made. He clearly does love the club, but just because you love a club doesn't mean you have to stay.
Yeah.
We've seen our fair share in Warriors of players that just go. They need a change or whatever the decision may be. But he at least showed that he's not going to half-ass it for them, which I think was a lot of Canberra fans, Warriors, like he's signed with another club. He's got his eyes on the door. He's just going to do what he has to, but he showed he really wants to leave on a high. So full credit to him. I thought he played well, but I didn't pick him. I picked the Big Red Machine.
Big Red.
Corey Horsburgh. I thought he's been fantastic for the Raiders this year.
Yeah.
He almost got 200 meters in this game. He's really stepped up as a leader of their forward pack, which I never would have predicted from any time. I've always seen him as a bit part player. Maybe because it's a prejudice against the redhead in him. But, I thought he's been really good. So hopefully he keeps building and becomes like a linchpin in that forward pack for them.
Honestly, wouldn't look out of place the next level up, I reckon.
Yeah. I think if he keeps playing the way he is, who knows? But I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's a fantastic player. Next game, Seagulls losing to the Titans, 26-10. This is where my picks went to shit, Richie. from this game on, I got everyone wrong.
Yeah. You wouldn't be alone.
Yeah.
It was 5-1 for the Titans. Khan Pereira grabbed 2, David Fifita grabbed 1, Philip Sami grabbed 1, and Cleese Haas grabbed the other. And only 1 try for Manly was Sean Kepi in the 50th minute. So, yeah, what do you think, Brad? This is like a classic Titans performance minus the defensive meltdown.
Yeah, so I've got on my notes here, Titans learned their lesson from last week. You know, they had a 16-2 halftime lead, and they're like, we can't lose this, guys. We can't fall apart 2 weeks in a row. Their forwards led the way, and their backs made it look easy. Still just need to see a lot more from them to see if they're actually going to be a threat, as they're too hot and cold.
Yes.
You know, they're playing the Eels this week at Magic Round. They could get flogged by 60 and we wouldn't bat an eyelid. Yeah. That's just how the Titans are. But what's your take on this game for them?
I think this is the Titans. We all know they can be if only they defended for a whole 80 minutes. But I thought they were very impressive from the outset. I thought they dominated Manly right from the get-go and never let up. So it was a good, ruthless 80-minute showing from the Titans, which we're not accustomed to see.
Yeah. And Manly.
One they'll want to forget, to be honest, just never in the match and never really looked likely. I know probably a couple players out. Maybe you can make a couple excuses, but that's the same for a lot of teams right now. So this is one they'll want to, review it and then flush it and move on.
Yeah, I've got on here. They just couldn't click into gear. They were clunky. They struggled to build pressure. Not sure if it was an off night or if this could be a start of a decline for them. They need a big performance against the Broncos in Magic Round to bounce back. I'm not sure if they will though. But disappointing from them. Glad that I jumped off their ship and onto the Sharks.
Yeah.
But your player that stood out.
I think we're going the same way, mate. But Dave Fifita, I'm very happy to put praise on him this year after we've bagged him the past couple for maybe not always being so involved in the game, but capable of a flashy try. But he's gone the other way this year. He's rolling the sleeves up. He's doing a lot of the gritty work, and now he's picking up a couple tries as well. So he's doing everything I think the Titans would want out of him.
Yeah, I picked Fifita as well. Same. He's doing a little bit more of the grunt work. That was always my criticism of him, that he was good for a try or two and he'd do amazing things with the ball in hand, but he wasn't doing much else. And like you said, he's gone the other way. He's doing a lot of that stuff and getting a try or two every now and then to help his team out. But yeah, he's really rolling his sleeves up, which is great to see him do. Because you're going to get one good game out of him every 10 or so rounds. So it happened.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, great performance from him. But we'll move on to the next game, the game of the round, game of the century, I guess. Tigers defeating the Panthers 12-8. So this one won't take you long. There's not a lot of points there.
Oh, it was a surprise though. Low scoring, 12-8, terrible conditions, but I found it compelling viewing, mainly because of the result and the bottom beating the dynasty. That's the Panthers. That's a massive surprise. But 2-1, Brandon Wakeham and David Nofaluma for the Tigers. 1 try to the Panthers was Tyrone Peachey after 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, what do you reckon, Brad? That this you tipped this, didn't you? I think you were close to it.
No.
You're on the Tigers bandwagon.
The week before, I had decided that I was just going to put a cheeky little bet on the Tigers every week because eventually they'd win and you'd get all your money back that you lost from every game. But I didn't do it for this one. I regret it now, but that's what you do. But yeah, fantastic effort from the Tigers. They didn't get a lot of chances in poor weather, but they made them count. We've said that they have forgotten. I think we even said it last week that they've forgotten how to win. They get close, but just fall apart. This time they wouldn't be denied. Just a solid performance that they can be proud of. They need to build off it if possible. But yeah, I think the biggest thing to take out of it is they held the reigning premiers scoreless in the second half.
Yeah,
That's massive
was massive.
because the Panthers are known for getting into these little tussles, but always having something like in that final 10, 15 minutes, they'll just get ahead. They couldn't in this. So, yeah, fantastic from the Tigers. I think Jacko mentioned the young fullback. Yeah, what a find he is. I think I joked about it last week about which team's going to pick him up because the Tigers let the fullbacks go. But yeah, and yeah, Jacko mentioned Coruscant was a happy chappy. Yeah, it's fantastic to get your first game, first win in your new club against your old club.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. But what was your take on the Tigers?
I thought it was a fantastic wet weather performance from the Tigers. They completed their sets at a really high percentage despite the tough conditions. The defense was tenacious. Like Jacko said, I thought young Buller, the rookie fullback, was outstanding. He had some nice moments. The try assist on Norfaluma's try, the try saving tackle on Cleary, which was huge. It pretty much stopped the Panthers' chance of coming back.
Yeah,
really impressive.
And you take about the Panthers.
They just didn't seem to adapt to the conditions as well as the Tigers. Maybe the wet weather was the great leveler that the Tigers needed. Maybe like Mikey says, maybe they're missing Webster and maybe throw Serraldo in that too, maybe. But 4 wins, 4 losses. They're definitely not looking the same team of the past couple of years, but I'm still not willing to write them off from premiership contention just yet. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge.
No, they're done, mate. They're heading to the bottom. Not even going to make the 8. They're pathetic. No, in all seriousness, you never rule them out. I think we've said that before. I think when they lost, it might have been against the Broncos, saying like, oh, yeah, they didn't look great, but odds are they're still going to be a grand final team. It's just they've built that kind of equity in themselves. But yeah, the second loss in a row here. Jacko said they don't like wet weather. Cats are never fond of water. But yeah, they look disorganized, and I think it goes to, we've talked about it before. It's a you perform however you want when you're winning, but I'm not a fan of how arrogant the Panthers seem at times.
Yeah.
And I think that bit them in the ass here. I think they went into this like every team in the NRL will do, admittedly. They went into this going, it's the Tigers, we got this. There were all the talks during the week about them, resting players for this game, and that it didn't end up happening. But that was kind of how lightly I think they took them. And I think by the time they realized they were actually in a fight, it was too late. But unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword because it makes them a very dangerous opponent, magic round for the Warriors, as they won't want to lose 3 in a row. So it's like, it was fantastic seeing the Tigers win, but the back of my mind, it was like, oh no.
Yeah. Maybe we need to do our rain dance if they don't like the wet weather.
Yeah. But yeah, your player of the game.
Another player who's sometimes heavily maligned, so I'm going to put praise on him. Luke Brooks.
Come on. Even his mother doesn't praise him. What are you doing?
I know. So now's the time. Somebody's got to take it. Luke Brooks, 2 40-20s, couple of try assists. He controlled the game nicely. It's what he's capable of, but you never see it. So now that he's done it, I'm going to take my chance to praise him.
Yeah, and he played really well. It's not fair. I think it's unfairly how he gets treated at times. The weight of the world on him and a what support club. But yeah, I didn't go with him though. I went with David Clemmer. I thought it was the first big game from Clemmer we've seen since he joined the club. He went for 215 meters. He's kind of doing, in this game, he did what they signed him for.
Yeah.
He was just physical, and he helped win that battle. Because in rainy weather, we'll probably talk about it in the next game. But in rainy weather, you're relying on your forwards a lot. And he did them well. Next game, we don't have to really talk about it though, mate.
Yeah, should we gloss over it?
Roosters defeating the Warriors 14-0.
Yeah.
Not another game you don't have to talk long here. Give us the rundown.
2 tries, Nat Butcher, Satili Tupanua shouldn't have been on the field, but he scored. There you go.
And so here's Suoli'i with his 3 kicks.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So yeah, taking all my bias off, Warriors jerseys down. Roosters made the most of their chances with the ball in hand and were excellent in defence. They became the first team this year to hold their opponents to 0. Their forwards made easy work of the middle, I thought, and Tedesco and Joey Manu looked hard to stop all night. It felt like every time they got the ball, there was at least one tackle break on the way. It was a solid performance from the Roosters, in my opinion. I think they were lucky, as we said, with some calls, but ultimately, take those calls out of it, everything the Warriors threw at them, they stopped, which is the name of the game. So yeah, thought it was a great performance from the Roosters there. Your take on the Roosters?
Oh, I thought for a moment that Tedesco was playing basketball. But taking the saltiness out. Yeah, tough conditions. I thought the Roosters one came off the back of outstanding defense. Obviously, the 0, they'll be very happy with that. But the Warriors, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I think if you were looking at line breaks, it would be close to 0. Pretty scarce anyway. Yeah, the Warriors tried their best to throw a lot at the Roosters, and they just kept repelling them. So, bad calls aside, you got to give them props for their defense.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add about the Warriors?
Not all doom and gloom. I thought we were strong on defense as well. 2 tries. I think one was off a kick. So, resilience as always, as has been the trend this year. I thought it was tough to get our attack going with A, the weather conditions, and B, a lot of injuries, so a lot of reshuffles and different combinations. So I'm not going to sit here and make excuses all night. We still came up with 0, but it's not like we lay down and got humped like we have in previous seasons.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone watching went to the game live like I did, but yeah, it was horrible to watch them lose while sitting in that weather. I have a New York Giants poncho I got in New York that I've had for years. You've seen it at wet games, Richie.
Yeah.
Cost me like $1 at a New York Giants game. I had that on, and I still got soaked through. Yeah, not a dry bone in sight, but I thought they just lacked that attacking spark close to the line. They were building pressure really well. It felt like they were really setting themselves up in the Roosters' red zone for large periods, but they just couldn't crack through. I think it was without Tohu Harris. I think there was not as much depth to their attack. His short passing game really opened things up, but without him there, it was kind of all funneling through Sean and just going the run to the edge, short ball to a second rower, which it almost worked several times.
A couple of drop balls.
It is, and that it's easy to defend. You're kind of relying on the second rower's talent to get through the defense as opposed to creating space and going through. But yeah, a lot of players out, which, not an excuse. But if you told me that with all those players out before the season started, they lose by one barge over try and a fortuitous grubber, I would have been over the moon. It's just the expectations we have now are so different.
Yes. Yeah, way different.
But yeah, it wasn't an embarrassment by any stretch. And I think Hammer's probably getting ready for his show now, but it's something he mentioned in our chat after the game that a lot will be learned from this loss. I think this loss will build character.
Yeah.
Hopefully, being very hopeful. And Jacko said, without being too critical, Egan wasn't great on attack. Yeah, it's probably his worst game he's had. I don't know if it was just getting back into the grind, the weather, if he wasn't as confident because every time he played well, he got knocked out. But yeah, I think there's so many other little things, but they didn't roll over and quit, which I think is commendable.
You mentioned Tohu and his ball playing. I think look at Chance too. Chance not being there. Dallin in the fullback position, great for kick return meters and running back at the line as hard as you possibly can, but probably not the same level as Chance when it comes to the ball playing and the shape plays. He's more direct. So I think that probably hurt our attack a little bit too.
Yeah. But yeah, it is what it is. First loss at Mount Smart this year too, unfortunately. But who was your player that stood out?
I actually put I put Dallin with Tenny Zalesniak, and this was I went off early. Sorry, I shouldn't have interjected there. I noticed him mainly, like I say, in the fullback position. Very hard runner, a lot of kick return meters, but I think him being there took away from our attack quite a lot. It looked like mostly that was what he was doing, and maybe it's the conditions, but I think even if it was dry, he doesn't have the same sort of. He doesn't fit the spine as well as Chance does, and it gives us a lot more attacking options. So I didn't notice him for having an outstanding game, more for what it did to our spine and our attack. It made it a bit more disjointed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think for the first time in our history, we've both picked a losing team player for our player that stood out. I went with Adam Fanua-Blake, though. He played 71 minutes, I think. Played a lot of it at lock, which was a bit of a surprise. And he ran for like almost 200 meters. I think he was like 194, and I think he had like 68 post-contact. He's got a tank on him. He's just a beast. And I think I put in my review this week that Tohu's been named. I would quietly put money down that we're not going to see Tohu play, though. I feel like it's like we saw it last time where he was named every week but then pulled out. Without some of those forwards there, the Warriors are leaning on Eden a lot, but he's responding positively. He did look knackered. Watching live, you can kind of see like after hit-ups, when the camera pans away and follows the ball, you can watch the player. And there were ones where he'd hit up, bust through for like 5 or 6 meters, getting tackled, play the ball, and then he just looked like he was dying. But then, a few sets later, he's doing the same thing again. Big tank. I'm hoping that these long minutes, though, don't result in an injury. Touch wood. But, disappointing. But we'll move on to these bloody Dragons, Richie. Last game. Bulldogs beating the Dragons 18-16.
Yeah, the one time Brad tips them. It was 3 tries apiece for the Dogs. Corey Waddell and Jake Avarillo grabbing 2. Nice performance from him. 3 tries for the Dragons. Matthew Feangai, Toby Couchman, Max Feangai, the brother. Goal kicking the difference. It was both teams had 2 from 3 from conversions, but Burton slotted a penalty, and that was the difference in the scoreboard.
Yeah, I've got my notes here. Bulldogs grinded out the win here and looked decent enough considering the amount of outs they had. Need to work on their defense and discipline as they have much harder matches coming up. Not really much else to say. It was quite a low-scoring affair. Kind of felt like, it wasn't the greatest game by either team, but with the amount of outs they had, they shouldn't have been as close as they were here. But your take on the Doggies?
I thought great job to get the result. I mean, we all know about their injury toll. It's well documented. So I think games like this, I think in the long term, once they get their troops back, this is going to do them good in the long term. Some players are getting some first grade experience in games where they otherwise wouldn't have, and they still got the result. So they'll take that as a net win.
Yeah, and your take on the Dragons?
It seems like we're saying it most weekends about the Dragons this year, but close but no cigar. They seem to lack the ability to close out these tight contests this year. I mean, they're always in the contest, but they're losing by 2 this week, 1 the week before. They're dropping a lot of close games.
Yeah, I see Simon's given us his picks. We'll put Jacko's comment on while I compose myself to rant about the Dragons. But he said, yeah, Hook shitty with Lomax missing goals and dropped them. Yeah, we talked about that before we went live, Jacko, and said like he has the last few weeks his kicking hasn't been great. He missed one in this game. Admittedly, if he got it, there'd be golden point situation. But I don't think Lomax is the problem. But yeah, the bloody Dragons, they screwed me again. I'm sick of them. Get rid of them out of this bloody competition. First time in 2023 that I tipped them and they let me down. They could have won this match. They had the opportunity, but they let themselves down with poor defensive reads, lack composure to take advantage of playing against 12 men. They did score a try, straight after it, but they should have got more. They didn't score again after that. They really, that was the time to put the foot down and just go. They've only got themselves to blame. I don't know. Crazy to think that they lost this. I don't know how. But yeah, who was your player that stood out?
It was kind of hard to pick one out in this game, but I think you're probably going to do the same. Avarillo probably was the one player that clearly stood out this game. Couple of tries, just looked fast and chasing in defense. I thought he had a real crack.
Yeah, and I went the same. Yeah, Avarillo. Thought he looked great. He had a few good runs. Just a talented young footballer. He always seems to give his all. So yeah, full credit to him. So that was round 9. I think I can't remember what way we do it, but I'll bring up I think the tips first. Look at that. I actually got it to work. So the tips, Simon got 4 out of 8, still leading the comp, 46 out of 72. You got back up into second place, Richie, because you got 5 out of 8,
Nice.
with 41 out of 72. And then I'm at the bottom, 4 out of 8. I was feeling good in that first 4 games, Richie. And then the back 4, I lost every single one, and I'm 40 to 72. So looking at it, if I can bring it up, there we go. The ladder. I think you did top 8 last week, so I'll do it this week.
Yep.
We've got. I'm gonna hold on. There we go. Make it disappear. We've got the Brisbane Broncos, despite their loss, still sitting at the top. Sharks have gone up to second place. Rabbitohs have moved up to third. Storm moved up to fourth. Roosters moved up to fifth. Manly dropped down to sixth. Penrith dropped down to seventh. Warriors dropped down to eighth.
Yep. So the bottom 9 looks like this. Dolphins sitting in 9th. They've dropped a spot. Gold Coast Titans in 10th. Canberra Raiders 11th. Parramatta Eels have climbed up to 12th. The Dogs have climbed up to 13th. Newcastle 14th. St. George Illawarra 15th. North Queensland, 16th. And West Tigers, despite the win, still at the foot of the ladder.
Yeah, and despite the order, I feel like the top 8 is kind of going back to what we expect of the teams. Not in that order by any means. I'd be switching. I would have said like Penrith first place, Brisbane 7th type thing. But yeah, you kind of see it. There's still a bit of a log jam, 11th place Raiders are on the same points as the 7th place Panthers. So there's still going to be a lot of changes with it as close.
Yep.
And yeah, Jacko, before we're about to go into questions anyway, so I may as well bring up Jacko's stuff now. He said Souths have been fined $15,000, but keep their competition points for having an extra player on the field. That's fair enough.
Yeah, expected.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's also got the interesting stat of the 7 teams above us, being the Warriors, 5 have had the bye.
That's good for us. Yeah.
It is good for us, yeah. We're in a good spot, despite being 8th right now, with a bye on the way. Panthers, we'll talk about it soon, but I don't know if that's going to be 2 points heading the Warriors' way. Doggies, I think that's an achievable 2 points. Then the bye, so out of the 6 points you can get in the next 3 weeks, they should get at least 4.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll move on. I'll make this disappear. There we go. We've kind of answered everyone's questions as we've gone.
Yep.
As we seem to do when Paul's not here.
Yeah.
But we've got our own questions anyway. So both of them are Warriors related, but I'll let you go with yours first.
Okay. So from what I hear, it looks like Luke Metcalf isn't far away from a return now. Would you bleed him back into the team via New South Wales Cup, or do you get him straight in to help cover the Tamaite Martin injury? Bit of a unique situation there.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures of him back running around at training, and he looks in good nick when I've seen him at the home games walking around before kickoff or before the game. It's been him and Kepu have been going around and taking photos with fans just around the stadium, and he looks fine. Prior to all these injuries and where we were sitting on the ladder, I would have said give him a week at New South Wales Cup, but with how things are going, they got so many outs. If he's ready, I'd just throw him in. I think he's talented enough. It's not like he's coming in to be the Lord and Savior.
Yeah.
He's kind of adding in a component. And I think Dylan Walker is so integral to the Warriors' game plan coming off that bench that if you've got a guy that can just slot into 6, I would be doing it. So, yeah, prior to us being now 8th, I would have said give him a week. Now I'm saying bugger it, throw him in now. I want to see what he can do. But what about you?
Yeah, much the same, mate. Had our roster been healthy, I probably would have given him a bit of time to get some match fitness. I just love Dylan Walker, what he brings off the bench in that utility role. I think it helps the balance of our team. So I'd probably throw him in there.
Yeah. It's interesting, but mine's kind of the same. My question to you was, Tohu Harris has been named to return this week. Do you think it's wise to throw him in there straight away, or would you have given him more time off?
I think it's wise if he's ready. It all depends on if he's ready. And none of us would know that other than him, and maybe probably people within the club would know more. If he's good to go, pick him. He's very important. Do we manage his minutes? Maybe give him a bit more, longer stints on the bench to manage his minutes a bit more, maybe not flog him as much with 80 minutes or 75 minutes. Maybe that's the way to go. But yeah, if he's confident, I'd get him back in there. I hope he is confident that he's good and not playing because he really wants to play and putting himself at risk of a season ender.
Yeah, I'm going like the opposite with my Metcalf thing. I would have preferred they let him stay off. Just it's a second injury on the same knee. And I'm looking at it, the way the competition works right now, they got Penrith, where, if I'm brutally honest, I don't see us being able to beat Panthers team hurting from a loss on the Tigers with him or without him. So take him away. The next game is the Bulldogs. I think they can beat them without him. And then the week after that, you got to bye. So you could essentially get 3 extra weeks to get him to 100% before that game in Napier.
It's a good point.
But we're not at training. So it might have just been like I'm not going to say a cork, but just like a little prang, and it's actually 100% fine already. I'll trust them with it. But I'm just looking at, do we want to have this conversation again in like 3 or 4 weeks if it happens for the third time? But yeah, the team's always better with him in it. So I'm never disappointed seeing him out there. But I'm trying to think of, that slightly better run that the Warriors have at the back end is going to be a lot easier if he's actually still available. But so that's it. I didn't see any more questions pop up, so we'll move into talking about the next round.
Yes.
Which is, the magic round.
Yep.
Warriors playing host to the Penrith Panthers. I'll let you run down our Warriors team, which will most likely change by kickoff. But here we go.
It could do. We're going quite long. I'll rock and roll through it. Chans is back in the number 1.
Yep.
Actually, I don't know what's going on there, because I thought if he was Category 1, he would have to miss this game as well, given the short turnaround.
From what I heard, he was cleared by the NRL.
They gave him good.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping. Okay, so chance number 1. Wings, DWZ and Ed Cossey, Marcelo Montoya and Adam Pompey, the centres, Dylan Walker, Sean Johnson, the halves, Eden Fenor-Blake, Wade Egan, Bunty R4 front row, Jackson Ford, Marati Neokore, and Tohu Harris has been named. We shall see. But that would be the back row. Interchange, Bailey Sheridan, Josh Curran, Dimitri Sifakula has been named again on the bench, and Tom Ale.
Yeah, and then for the Panthers, we've got Dylan Edwards at fullback, Sunia Taruva and Brian Do'o on the wings, Tyrone Peachy and Stephen Crichton in the centres, Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary in the halves, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny and James Fisher-Harris the front row, Scott Sorensen and Zach Hosking second row, and Isaiah Yao lock. And then we've got on the interchange Sonny Luke, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry, and Jermaine Salmon on the bench. I've heard a lot of noise that Spencer Leniu is actually going to move into the interchange as well, but he's named on the extended bench at the moment. So takes on this home game in Brisbane for the Warriors.
I'd love to tip us. I hate the thought of us dropping 3 in a row. It's the Panthers. I can't see the Panthers dropping 3 in a row. So I'm going to reluctantly tip the Panthers.
Shocking call. No, I've gone the same. I think this is I'm not going to say easily. It's a winnable game for the Warriors with how we've seen the Panthers aren't at their best, but there's still a few outs from the Warriors in that forward pack. But if 2 is back and got that short game, I think it is going to make them a bit better. But yeah, I just don't see the Panthers losing 3 in a row. We'll really love next Wednesday coming on here and saying how much of an idiot we both are for getting this one wrong. But yeah, I have to go with the Panthers. I just don't see them losing 3 in a row, especially after it being the Tigers. I think they're really going to want to come out.
Yeah,
I'm just hoping that it's a competitive game. I think that's still the Warriors fan of me going like, if they lose, I want to see it being tight. It's having your cake and eating it too there, but it is. And Simon, with Paul not here, Simon doesn't have a voice, but he's picked with the Panthers as well. So yeah, just hoping that it's a solid game though. But yeah, we'll move on to the rest of Magic Round. Look at me go. So there we go. So yeah, first up on Friday, no Thursday night game because of Magic Round. We've got Bulldogs Raiders. I've gone with the Raiders. Kind of why I picked the Dragons last week was I think the Bulldogs don't have enough talent yet. And Simon's gone with Raiders too.
Yeah, of course he would. I went Raiders as well. I think the Bulldogs are decimated, but the Dragons just weren't good enough to capitalize on it on the weekend. And I think the Raiders are a bit better than that.
Yeah, and before we move on, Jacko just mentioned about the Warriors game, saying if we can't contain James Fisher-Harris, Leota, and Yo, Ivan will send Sonny Luke out to set the backs alight and we'll be in real trouble. Yeah, he's a spark, that kid. It's a very, very possible threat. But yeah, next game, the Broncos, poor guys, they have to have an away game finally. They're playing an away game at Brisbane against the Sea Eagles.
Yeah.
I've gone with Broncos. I think they'll be hurting from that loss, and Manly just look all sorts of trouble at the moment. And playing at home, Broncos love playing at home. So
playing away but at home.
Yeah, so I've got them, and Simon's done the same.
Yeah, me too.
Yep. We've already covered the first game on Saturday, which was Warriors-Panthers, with all 3 of us picking Panthers.
Yep.
Next up on Saturday, we've got Sharks-Dolphins. I've gone with the Sharks because I think Nico's going to put on a studded performance, but Simon's gone with the Dolphins.
Ooh. No, I can't. They've proved me wrong a lot, Simon, but I don't think I can go that far. I think the Sharks win the battle of the sea animals this one.
So you're going Sharks?
Yeah.
So big win for Dolphins here, judging by Simon's picks compared to ours, Matt.
Yeah.
Last game on Saturday, Storm Rabbitohs. This was the hardest one for me, to be honest, out of this whole round.
Rabbits.
I've gone with Rabbits as well. Simon's gone with Storm. I just think I think the Rabbitohs are looking a bit better at the moment. The Storm are still a bit clunky.
Yeah. I'm the same. The Rabbitohs seem like in good form. Storm not as much, but they're coming off a bye, so could be close. I think it will be close.
It's going to be close. I think if either team won, I wouldn't be surprised. Because they're just both that type of team. First game on Sunday, Tigers Dragons. Simon has gone for the Dragons. I have gone with the Tigers. I'm done with those bloody Dragons, Richie. But I think the Tigers, with what we saw against the Panthers, I think they've got more than enough to be competitive with the Dragons. So I'm hoping the Tigers go 2 from 2.
Here's my incoming spike pick. Dragons. They've dropped the dead wood, Zach Lomax, and they're gonna put a show on.
That's another reason why I went with Tigers as well. I think the Dragons aren't going to do well without Lomax, but I'll probably be wrong again. I can't pick the Dragons at the best of times. I see the bloody Paul's little spam bots having a go at Jacko because Jacko said go the Tigers. But ignore the spam bot. I know Paul's working on in the background about trying to make sure that doesn't get abusive to you guys like it seems to do. I don't even know what it is. But next game, going on the tangent. Roosters Cowboys. I think this was going to be a tough game at the start of the year. But it's easy now. Roosters should win this by a large margin. Simon's picked the same.
Yep, Roosters.
And then the last game, Titans Eels. I've gone with the Eels, and Simon's gone with the Titans. Simon's getting ballsy that far ahead of us, Richie.
He can afford to. Yeah. I'm going to say Eels, but I don't think it's going to be a runaway victory. I think the Titans at home, if they defend, could scare the Eels. But
come on, they're not at home. They're down the road, but they're not. At home.
It's pretty much home, mate. It's pretty much home.
Yeah.
I'll say Eels though.
All right. So we'll do a quick glance over it. Raiders we all picked. Broncos we all picked. Panthers we all picked. And Roosters we all picked. So we got 4 games where we all agree. Yeah. Interesting. I'm hoping it's a good round. I know there's been a lot of talk about Magic Round, and people are like, it is what it is. I always look forward to it. I'm hoping eventually we get the Magic Round moving around, and it still becomes a yearly thing, but it kind of becomes the Super Bowl of the NRL where, a different city picks it up. It's not going to happen anytime soon, but be great to see. But this is where we bid Jacko goodbye as we quickly go into Super League. Hope you enjoy Magic Round, Jacko, and see you next week. No games in Super League over the weekend. I did try to look up some news, but I didn't find anything really interesting. I'm sure Simon will probably pop something up for us, but I've got the preview for round 10. I think it's round 10, or it might be round 11. I get it mixed up.
Yeah,
it's 11. Sorry. So we've got Hull FC versus Wigan, Leeds versus Salford, Warrington versus Wakefield, Hull KR versus Huddersfield, Lee versus Castleford, and Catalans versus St Helens. I can say Huddersfield that way because Paul's not here. And Simon's just said about Magic Round, he would actually like the Magic Round to split between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Yeah, they're still a close enough region. So, I just think a lot of it, we'll see how well it goes, but there's a lot of concerns about Suncorp's field surviving. I don't know if it will or not, but time will tell. But anything else you want to add? I know we've almost gone 2 hours, Richie. Paul's going to be furious.
Yeah, this is probably pushing the record books for us. No, just thanks to everybody for the chat.
Yeah.
Really good as always. Thank you, Brad, for donning the producer's hat and doing a good job.
Yeah, I try, mate. So, ladies and gentlemen, Thank you for tuning in tonight and joining us on the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie. For your weekly update on rugby league, tune into our show at 8 p.m. next week on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you want to go. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for joining me again, Richie, and good night, everyone.